All right. Welcome to the 2026 Dialogue, a masterclass series by the HR Association of India. I'm Neha Jagnani, and today we are exploring a topic that goes beyond policies and procedures to look at what it truly takes to create workplaces where people feel respected, supported, and empowered to speak up. Our theme for the session today is Beyond Compliance, building workplaces of trust, safety, and inclusion. To explore this important conversation, we are joined by Sumit Agarwal. Sumit is a celebrated SDG DEI Ambassador and motivational speaker, embodying a vision for diverse workplaces. Recognized as a LinkedIn top voice for DEI, he is revered for his transformative HR insights. Aligned with India Diversity Forum, ISTD, and NHRDN, Sumit's endeavor fuel progressive HR practices. As the founder of the Link Tribe, he channels his DEI expertise to enable professionals to network and grow through LinkedIn. Sumit, thank you so much for joining. It's a pleasure having you.
Thank you so much, Nehaji. Just a small correction. I am also the icon for the Election Commission of India, the MOC for NITI Aayog, and I'm also a lifetime member of IOD, which is the Institute of Directors. And so I think now that we are talking about culture, right, from compliance, it's a very interesting conversation because I see it becoming a boardroom conversation rather than a HR conversation these days.
Right, absolutely. Great way to start and looking forward to this exciting masterclass, Sumit. So, my first question for you is how can organizations move beyond compliance and build a workplace culture based on genuine trust, safety, and inclusion?
So if we look at trust, right, I am an ex-employee for Great Places to Work, right, and we literally worked on the trust index where we had to measure trust, how employees trusted their employers, how culture moved beyond compliances, and what is the ROI? Because businesses kind of do nothing without ROIs, right? So, if you look at the trust index for the last 15 years, the top companies in the trust index for Great Place to Work, according to its latest report in 2026, every employee outperforms the other employees who are not there on the trust index by 14 times, which actually shows that if you like the company, in plain and simple terms, you own the company. You have ownership and stake in the company. So that's one. Second is, again, when you talk about beyond compliance, it's a large statement because you have to look at post, you have to look at disabilities, you have to look at generational diversity. So if I just talk in terms of post and disability specifically, um, then you can see that culture moves beyond compliance the moment you talk about infrastructure, not just hiring, right? You have proper ramps, you have proper tactile flooring for people who are not able to see, you have sign language trainers, communicators for people who are not able to hear. So, infrastructure is one. Second is having reasonable accommodation policies in place so that you are able to give people the flexibility that they want so that they're able to be their authentic self in their work, right? That's one. Third is, again, if you look at it that way, then you'll have to look at manager capabilities. Are the managers trained to deal with people with disabilities, right? Then again, is definitely the mindset. Are my colleagues interacting with me because I'm a person with a disability? Am I being invited to office events? Am I being invited to various parties at the office? Do I feel like I belong here? That's the question, right? That's in terms of people with disabilities. Now, if I talk in terms of, say, POS, right, gender diversity, am I just measuring the number of complaints of sexual harassment that I have in the workplace? Or am I also measuring the awareness sessions, the workshops, and do we have a culture of respect for women in the company? Do we have a gender inclusive post policy in the company, right? Are we taking up cases in post, or are we placing it under code of conduct under the HR, right? So all of this has to be are the nodal officers registered in SheBox, right? Under the Ministry of WCD, right? Overall, if I talk about inclusion, um, do the people from the other generations understand the Gen Z and Gen Alpha lingo? Are we giving them enough flexibility to be welcomed into our workspaces? Are they allowed to make decisions? Because if you see the engagement surveys, employee engagement has been going down considerably. There can be several factors: advent of AI, shortening of attention spans, then these ideology of not taking up too much work and rejecting to be in formal leadership roles and figuring out their own path. So all of these can make a combined effect. But however, um, if you look at India as a whole, we have the BRSR, which is Business Responsibility Sustainability Reporting Framework, right, by the Ministry of Corporate Affairs, and there have been mandatorily we have 1,000 companies according to market cap which who are supposed to report, but there are around 1,700 companies who are voluntarily reporting their data in BRSR, in the Ministry of Corporate Affairs. So India is moving beyond compliance. It is trying to create a culture of trust. And what happens is, if you look at Indian markets, right, there are around 70,000, approximately 68,000 something compliance laws, right? I don't think anybody can keep track of so many compliances. What you can try to do is try and figure out through balance of probabilities what is the right thing to do in this case. What would my ethics and governance drive me to do? So that is something which you can look at.
Sure, sure. Thank you so much. Beautifully started with the trust index aspect of it. And as you said, culture moves beyond compliance. Infrastructure is very, very critical. Policies are very, very critical to be have in place, which are relevant to the people. Uh, that provides the flexibility to people to be their authentic self. And managerial capabilities and mindset playing equally a critical role in this. And last but not the least, the culture of respect, flexibility, belonging is something that makes an ecosystem which is much more beyond a complex compliance or a procedure. So thank you so much, Sumit. My next question for you is, what are the biggest gaps between having workplace policies in place and ensuring that employees actually feel safe and supported?
See, one thing is we are trying to solve everything by training workshops and L&D, right? Every organization has these policies that exist. I want you to run a survey, if possible, from HRAI. Run a survey asking your members how many of you actually have gone through the company HR handbook, and you will get your answer. Nobody goes through the HR handbook in their own company. He's right. I am associated through with many companies, right? And I don't remember what is on each of the pages of their handbooks. I went through it, but I don't remember day to day, right? So if you look at it this way, right? Uh, by a recent survey, there was a data that 2,000 employees have over 35% of the employees have witnessed some kind of misconduct, workplace misconduct, in the past 12 months. And this survey was done over 2,000 employees, right? But look at it that way. How many people come up and report actually, right?
Right.
So, so if you don't report, right, if you don't have that culture of trust, right, you won't you won't be able to track the mechanism. And why is why is POS built on a single mechanism that it has to track only complaints? Why are you not seeing why are you not tracking the increase, the repeat cases, the historical incidents, the context, all of that is trackable, right? But that data does not exist. What we are tracking is complaint numbers. Why it should be based on complaint numbers? It should be based on historical compliances, right? And it should be based on historical context of what the case has been, right? So this is what it comes to when I talk about POSH. But when I talk about again people with disabilities, everybody knows that the RPWD Act again exists. I've just built a ramp and just said that okay, this is my compliance is done, right? But when I walk into that room, I see there's no toilet there for people with disabilities. How am I supposed to work there for 9 hours without going to the washroom? If I work there, I use a wheelchair. My table is at this height, and I'm not able to use that table. What is the use of me joining the corporate office then? So everybody knows that the policies are there. So if you use the policies just as an excuse for compliance, I don't think that is something that will change anything. And this is not for the government to solve. This is for people to adopt on their own. This is for mindset. Right? This has to come from a place of empathy that, okay, I have to do the right thing. I'm not here just to make profits anymore as a business house. This was 20 years back that your main agenda was to make profits. Now your main agenda also should be to do the right thing by the society, right? And that is what differentiates any good organization which ranks high in the trust index, that they stand with their employees instead of leading them from the front,
Right.
right?
Absolutely. So loved how you started by saying that the problem is that everybody starts to solve problem by L&D or organizing training programs. Very, very important. Secondly, the tracking system, which is usually based on the reportings, it should rather have some historical context to it. It should be proactively managed rather than, post the complaints show up. Um, Last but not the least, mindset. It is very, very important. It is nobody's else's problem. It is how we think. It is how we focus on our
Yeah, it
issues.
is. It is again, as I keep saying, it is a governance problem. It is not a HR problem. The NRC, the Nomination and Remuneration Committee, right, is also responsible for the diversity in leadership. So if the leadership is diverse, the employees itself become diverse, right? So it is a board problem where it should be tackled by the NRC, Nomination and Remuneration Committee of the board itself, right?
Right, right. Thank you so much for adding that, Sumit. My next question is, how can leaders create an environment where employees feel comfortable speaking up about concerns without fear of judgment or retaliation?
Again, if I again talk about this, and this question is very close to me because I have been to various platforms my entire life. I have been to HRAI multiple times and I have had the pleasure of interacting with you. I have been on TEDx stages, I have been on Forbes, I've been on Fortune, and one thing that really resonates with me is that your room should not only tolerate your presence but also celebrate it. If I walk into a room and I feel that, okay, people are tolerating me instead of celebrating me, I instantly walk out of that room. So the first time that I'll raise a concern is the only time if I feel that, okay, I feel that I'm being welcomed into that room. And I will not be judged for speaking up, right? In several laws, right, like POSH, retaliation is banned. You are not supposed to retaliate. It's a criminal offense
Hmm.
under the Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita, the BNS. It is retaliation is also a crime, right? Um, so what about the cases where it's not a crime? For example, the HR code of conduct. I will complain, right? I'll raise a concern, and tomorrow my promotion goes up, right? Some other Sumit, he's sitting there in the corner. He notices that he raised this other Sumit Agarwal raised a concern. Now he is not getting promoted. तो वो क्या करेगा? He will stop complaining. He will say that I will not do it. And then all of your issues suddenly stay unresolved. So, does it hurt me more than it hurts the company? Yes, it does. So, is it the responsibility that the company exactly tracks um, the exit interviews to see that whether all the complaints has been resolved during the tenure the person was working? Yes, that is the responsibility of company to run an analytics during the exit interviews or even at quarterly intervals to to say that okay, has all of your complaints been resolved? Why don't the leadership reach out every month and say that okay, this is a if not every month, every quarter, why don't they reach out to the employees under them and ask them that it's just a simple question of asking that, do you have any complaints? This is an anonymous call. Anonymous call. We will not, we will listen and we will not judge you. That's it. So before you let people talk, be prepared to listen. That is my, um, you know, main thing, that if you are willing to, listen, then only people will talk. Otherwise, they're not gonna talk.
Right. Absolutely. So, just to summarize, Sumit, being tolerated versus being celebrated makes the whole difference in your environment, how you're welcoming people, how much comfortable people are in front of you. Responsibility lies within the company to make sure that they analyze. Great example there for setting up.
Yeah,
Uh,
not just the company. To summarize what I just said, not just the company, the immediate supervisor, right, makes a lot of difference when you are talking about resolving of complaints. Uh, Supervisor is the most, you know, important person in anybody's life, because if my reporting boss is amazing, and even if the CEO is not a good person, I will still work in that company, because the who cares what the CEO is? The supervisor I am reporting to will stand up for me, right?
Absolutely. Very well said. So even in the
Yeah.
exit procedures, very important to understand the thought process of the person if their complaints were resolved. And anonymous call, a great example, understanding.
एक बात ये है ना, आप ये सोच के देखिए, ऑफिस की बातें लोग बाहर में जाके करते हैं। दैट आज पता है ऑफिस में क्या हुआ? अरे राशि ने ये बोला, रेखा ने वो बोला। But I will not share this with any other office colleague because I know the office politics is too much and it might get me kicked out of the company.
Right.
So at the end of the day, I am choosing not to trust my company. So how does it show to the outside world कि ये अगर अपने ऑफिस को कलीग्स को ट्रस्ट नहीं करती है, why should I join that company? I will never join that company.
Right. Absolutely. But it does reflect the culture that is being created, if my understanding is correct. If people are listening to you, if your ecosystem is open for you to speak, there will absolutely be no need for you to, hide whatever it is that you're feeling.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for your input, Sumit. My next question is, what role does leadership play in building trust and making workplace safety and inclusion part of everyday culture?
See, I'll tell you, leadership's this thing is leadership's actual job is not to inspire trust. Right? Leadership is not responsible for inspiring trust because inspiration, I'll tell you something, inspiration is temporary, consistency is consistent. What I mean to say is leadership will not be able to inspire trust. They will be able to design the conditions under which the trust is um, becomes a part of the culture, right? And that is what is mandatory, and that is what keeps it going. That if you look at it that way, you have to switch to a trust-based model for every company. India's attrition rate, I don't know if you are aware or not, is 17% according to 2025 वाला डेटा. 2026 का डेटा मेरे पास नहीं है. 2025 data, it is 17% the attrition rate for India overall across various industries. Just the market average, not a particular industry, but just the market average, right? So what happens if the employees walk out? You have to again hire a person, right? You have to again train the person. You will again have to design a sequence where you fit the person in the company, right? So if you look at it that way, the leaderships, I'll tell you something, right? I spoke to a lot of leaders, CEOs, CHROs, as a DEI advisor to Fortune 500 companies. I keep speaking to a lot of people on a daily basis, and they keep telling me, Sumit, cultural fit का कैंडिडेट नहीं मिल रहा है, right? And I say, ये cultural fit क्या होता है? Are you trying to fit people inside a box? Why don't you say I need to hire people for cultural contribution? So the leadership's job is to design a place where people are valued for their cultural contribution, not a cultural fit, because you already have 17% attrition rate. You already have Gen Zs who don't want to take up leadership roles because उनको 9 to 5 इतना मेहनत नहीं करना है, right? Be it for whatever reason, their parents have worked hard and they have their homes, they have their cars, and now housing rates are so high that most of the Gen Zs cannot afford a house and they are splurging their money. So what happens is you will not be getting employees. नहीं मिलेगा. इसके बाद after my generation, I am a millennial. नहीं मिलेगा डेडिकेटेड एम्प्लॉइज. नहीं करना उनको डेडिकेटेड काम 9 to 5. They will go to their gyms, they will go to their parties, they will go to the spa, they will go to the salon, and they will indulge in self-care. They will take care of their own mental health. So what you have to do is you have to create a set of conditions where the leadership is not able just to inspire trust, but to make it a part of the culture. Because inspiration is temporary. I have been to a lot of stages, I have heard a lot of claps, right? The moment I walk out of the room, all of the inspiration fades. So what you need is a way to make it consistent, and that's where the four-stage sequence that I described is infrastructure, policy, manager capability, and then finally mindset. All of that comes into play,
Sure.
right? Because if you have a great manager, then you have a great manager. If you have an amazing flexible policy, कि अच्छा तुमको अच्छा नहीं लग रहा है, you don't need to send a medical certificate to the company just to take your leave. Just say that I'm not feeling well, I'm not coming to the company, right? And then take your leave. If you have something important, if you have been pre-notified, that's a different thing. But then again, you should never justify taking leaves through medical reports, right? That is changing. If you look at the Equal Remuneration Act, right? What was the last time you conducted the equity pay gap audit? What was the last time you reviewed your maternity policy? Do you have a policy for single fathers in the organization? Why don't you have a policy for single fathers in the organization? Is this not a part of common sense? Right? So, all of this, I mean, it's 2026, and I'm having to have this conversation with you on HRAI to make people understand that, okay, this should also be done, whereas this should have been done years ago, right? And now Gen Zs are, very proactive when it comes to talking about their mental health,
Right.
right? So we have to take care of all of this. Better now than never, right?
Absolutely, Sumit. Thank you so much. Loved how you started saying that inspiration is temporary, but consistency is the only thing that is consistent. And great example there, stats of 17% attrition rate as of 2025. So it's very, very important, as you rightly said, to create those set of conditions that make people feel valued. And we don't have one generation working, we have multiple generations working. The priorities are different, the conditions are different, but trust has to be the core part of the culture. So thank you so much for sharing that input. Sumit, is that okay if we wrap up? Yeah, because I just got a meeting end alert that it's only
Sure,
5 minutes there. So can I just do the closing?
sure. So can I just add something?
Yeah.
Most of the organizations that I've worked with measures DEI and POSH and BRSR by intent. I would say stop measuring things by intent, add a budget, add a dashboard, track the metrics, and then look at it that what where was I in 2020 and where am I in 2026, right? So हम लोग तो पीपल विद डिसेबिलिटी हायर करते हैं, डिफरेंट रोल में है। द मोमेंट आई आस्क देम कितना दिन रुका है, क्यों छोड़ा है, कोई दूसरा करियर कोच था क्या, कोई सुपरवाइजर था क्या, I suddenly people I don't know how, but they stop speaking. They forget how to speak. बोलना ही बंद कर देते हैं because they have nothing to say ना. These things are trackable, but no one is tracking this.
Right.
I know this because I have been in this field for a very long time, right? So this is something which is trackable and solvable.
Right. Absolutely. So
Yes.
proactiveness is what is very, very important. That will make the whole difference. Even if you bring up so many policies, the attempt to track things, report things, and
Yes.
try to, prevent from potential crisis in your workplaces is what is the need of the hour. So thank you so much, Sumit. This brings us to the end of this masterclass. And on behalf of HRAI, I thank you for your insights and candid perspectives today. I think your conversation today reminded us that building inclusive and safe workplaces actually goes beyond just the right policies being in place. It requires trust, leadership, commitment, listening, psychological safety, where people are genuinely feel heard and respected. So thank you so
Yeah.
much for your inputs.
Thank you so much, Neha ji.
Thank you, so pleasure.